The shadow at the window. Martha moved to a small town in Maine after her divorce. The old house she purchased was on the edge of town, surrounded by dense forest. It was cheap because, as the realtor explained, the locals are scared of the rumors about it. But Martha didn't believe in ghosts and was happy to find a home within her budget. On her first evening in the house, she unpacked boxes while a storm raged outside. The wind howled, and the trees swayed, but Martha felt calm. The house, though old, was cozy. Around midnight, she went to the bedroom to prepare for sleep. As she closed the door, she heard a faint creak, like someone walking down the hallway. Martha froze, listening. Just the wind, she thought. The next morning, she noticed something strange, muddy footprints on the living room floor leading to the sofa. She sighed in confusion. Maybe I tracked them in myself, she thought, though she didn't recall walking there barefoot. The second night was more unsettling. While lying in bed, Martha heard a dull tapping at her window. She got up to look, but outside, it was pitch dark, and rain poured heavily. When lightning flashed, she saw the silhouette of a person in the woods near the house. She stared into the darkness, but the figure didn't reappear. On the third day, she decided to explore the house. In the basement, she found an old wooden chest. Opening it, she discovered faded photographs of a family that lived there in the 1960s. They all looked happy, except for one figure in the background, a tall man with a grim expression. That night, Martha went to bed but woke up to something cold brushing against her shoulder. She jolted upright, but the room was empty. Another flash of lightning lit the wall, revealing a shadow, a tall figure with unnaturally long arms. She rushed to the door, but it slammed shut by itself. A hollow voice echoed. "Why did you come here?" Martha screamed, but no one answered. She stayed in the house for a few more weeks, trying to find an explanation. But every night, the shadow outside the window crept closer. One day, her body was found in the yard. Her face was frozen in terror, and locals swore they saw a figure watching from the window again. The shadow at the window, the haunting continues. After Martha's death, the house was abandoned once again. Locals began spinning even more terrifying tales about the old home, and no one dared approach it after dark. But a few months later, a young couple, Jake and Susan, moved into town. They were looking for a quiet place to start fresh, and the old house seemed perfect. The ghost stories only made them laugh. Jake joked, "If there are ghosts, they'll like us." For the first few days, everything was quiet. They started renovating the house, planning to remodel the basement and bought vintage furniture to preserve the home's charm. But one evening, when Susan was home alone, she heard the floorboards creak in the hallway. "Jake? Is that you?" she called, knowing her husband had gone to the store. No answer. But the silence felt strange, so thick that Susan's heart began to race. She walked to the bedroom door and saw wet footprints on the floor leading from the window to the door. Susan hurried to close the window, but as she reached for the frame, lightning illuminated the forest. In the same spot where Martha had seen the figure, a tall man with long arms stood motionless. Susan froze, unable to move. When Jake returned, she told him everything. He only laughed. "It's just the wind and your imagination." The next night, Jake woke to a faint tapping sound. He went downstairs to investigate and found every cupboard and closet door wide open, though they had all been closed before bed. On the kitchen table, someone had written in the dust with a finger, "You shouldn't be here." Jake began searching for Susan, but she was nowhere to be found. Returning to the bedroom, he saw the window shattered, with wet footprints leading to the bed. Susan was sitting on it, staring out the window, as if in a trance. "Susan. What are you doing?" Jake shouted, but his wife slowly turned her head. Her eyes were empty, and a foreign voice spoke through her. "You were not meant to come." That night, Jake disappeared. Police found his car near the woods, but there was no sign of him. Susan stayed in the house for a few more weeks, silent and distant, until her body was discovered in the basement. On the wall near her, written in blood, were the words, "Now we are all together." The house remained abandoned. But locals said that now, there wasn't just one shadow in the window, but two. And every night, whispers drifted from the house, repeating, "Why did you come here?" The shadow at the window, the curse spreads. The old house became a local legend. People avoided it even during the day, and only the bravest teenagers dared approach it at night to test their courage. Those who did often returned changed, withdrawn, pale, and haunted by fear. One day, a man named Thomas arrived in town. He was a paranormal investigator and had heard about the house from a contact. Intrigued by the mysterious deaths, he decided to spend a night there to gather evidence. Thomas brought equipment, cameras, recorders, and a thermal scanner. He documented everything he could find about the house, family photos, records, even old newspaper articles. One mentioned that in 1963, a family mysteriously vanished from the house, leaving behind broken furniture and stains on the walls. The first night. When Thomas turned on his cameras, the house was silent. At first, he recorded only the creaking of old boards and the faint sound of the wind. But at midnight, his recorder picked up whispers that he hadn't heard in real time. "Leave. Leave." Thomas checked the rooms but found no one. He dismissed it as an anomaly. However, around 3 a.m., he noticed one of his cameras, pointed at the living room window, begin to move on its own. Turning on his thermal scanner, he saw a figure standing in the corner of the room. It didn't move, but the temperature in that spot was significantly lower than the rest of the house. Suddenly, the figure turned its head as if looking directly at the camera. Cold sweat covered Thomas as he decided to retreat to another room, but the living room door slammed shut by itself. Heavy footsteps echoed in the dark, moving closer to him. The discovered recording. 2 days later, police found Thomas's car near the house. The headlights were still on, but the car was empty. No one was inside the house either. The only clue to his presence was a recorder left in the kitchen. On the tape, Thomas could be heard talking to himself. Then his voice grew tense. "What is that? Who's there?" The sound of a door creaking followed, along with a voice. "You're next." The noise grew louder and louder until it abruptly ended with a scream. New events. After Thomas's disappearance, a group of journalists came to the house to film a report. But at night, when they began recording, all their cameras malfunctioned, and one of the crew members disappeared without a trace. The house is now surrounded by police tape. Locals believe the curse is spreading, anyone who enters never comes out. But those who pass by at night swear they see more and more shadows in the windows. And the whispers from the house grow clearer, repeating, "We're all waiting for you."